So, you want to sew? Well, the first step to sewing is knowing the terms. Hi, I'm Katie Tupper, and I'm an intermediate member of the Ionia Rustlers 4-H Club. Today, I'm going to explain some of the tools you use and terms found in sewing. I came up with this idea for this presentation when I was making a skirt that I used for Fashion Review at our county communication day, and I didn't know what some of the terms in the directions meant. I figured I have sewn a lot more than other people my age, so many other people probably don't know some of the tools or terms either. While I was making my skirt, some of the terms I encountered were straight of the grain, bias, selvage edge, yoke, interfacing, stay stitching, stitching in the ditch, top stitching, and gathering. Now, the tools you need are a measuring tape, a pattern, some fabric, pins, a scissors, needle and thread, a seam ripper, a pinking shears, an iron, interfacing, a sewing gauge, and buttons or a zipper. Possibly. You don't always use them. And then the patterns have like a lot of different markings. They have like arrows on them sometimes, and they say like lay on straight of grain, which means like this right here, the selvage edge is a tightly woven factory edge that tells you or like shows which way the straight of the grain runs. So if this is a selvage edge, then the straight of the grain would be running the same direction as it. And if it tells you to lay it on the straight of the grain, then you just lay the arrow in the direction of that. There's also a special foot you use on your sewing machine when you're sewing in a zipper. It's, well, an invisible zipper. And it has a little groove for the zipper to go in, so you can sew up right next to the zipper so it gets nice and tight. The bias of the fabric is a directional cross of the lengthwise and crosswise grain, and it's where there's the most stretch in the fabric. And so like when you're cutting a binding for a neck or armhole, you lay the pattern piece on the bias so that you can stretch it. The yoke is a shaped panel of fabric that is top stitched into a garment for stability or decoration. And they use it for, like in my skirt, it was the waistband. So like this was a part of the waistband that I didn't use. And so it would just like go right here as your waistband. Interfacing is a special type of fabric fused or sewn between two pieces of a garment. And it's used to stiffen it. So you use it in like waistbands or like cuffs of sleeves or collars. So you would just like I have the iron-on kind. So you just cut it the same size as the fabric, and then you like iron it on, and there's little beads that like melt and make it stick to the other piece, and then you like sew it in between these and you don't even see it. Stay stitching is a straight stitch a ½ inch from the edge, and you just do that so that the fabric like stays and doesn't ravel while you're like making the garment. And then gathering stitches, you use the most loose needle tension. So like on our sewing machine, it's 4 is like a really long stitch. And you sew two seams at 5/8 of an inch and then at a ½ inch. And then you just pull gently on the thread, on the ends of the threads to get them to make gathers. So then it just looks gathered. Stitching in the ditch is commonly used for hemming or securing the inside of a waistband. Top stitching is a line of stitching sewn on the outside of a garment close to a seam line for stability or decoration. And then pinking shears, once you get done sewing your seam, a lot of times you'll like pink the extras, and so it just makes a waved cut, and so it just makes it way harder to ravel rather than like just a straight cut. So let's review. Before you start sewing, you need to take your measurements and find a pattern that has the right size for you. After that, you need to find fabric that works well with the pattern. And a lot of times on the backs of the patterns near the bottom, it has suggested fabrics that work well with the pattern. So then if you pick a fabric like that, it should work good with your pattern. Next, you need to find a thread that matches or is close to the fabric color that you're using, and put the same color on the bobbin if you're using a sewing machine so that you don't see the thread really. When you get done sewing your seam, you always want to make sure you pink the extra like I said so that it doesn't ravel nearly as easy. Or if you have like really flimsy fabric, you can also do a zigzag stitch like on the side of the seam that you won't see, so that'll also help keep it from raveling. And last but not least, be sure you always iron your garment when you get done sewing so there are no wrinkles. Happy sewing! This concludes my presentation. Are there any questions? The question was, how many sewing projects have I done? And I have made a comforter for my bed. This year I made a skirt and a blouse, and I've made some other things too. The question was, what is the most interesting thing I learned about this? And I would have to say, like, stitching in the ditch. The question was, where did I get my information? And I got a lot of it from the pattern I was using because it like told me like what the terms meant. It like said some of the things on it. And then also my mom told me some of the things. Are there any other questions? Thank you.